There's a couple things I want to get to in regards to my last video that I posted. One is the thing Putin said in his speech a week ago or a little more. And the other is Biden's last words of his inaugural address. So I'll go back over each, but so this video can stand alone, but I'm picking up on tangents that I didn't resolve, and there were actually a lot of them, but these are the two that I was trying to get to in that video. And if I'm lucky, what I'm gonna try to get to today, as a seeming non sequitur, is how see we're moving from, and this isn't my idea. It was preached to me, taught to me. Is that we're moving from an age of content to context, from, you could say, information to collaboration or collaborative information. Better understandings of the nexes of causality in multi causal systems, which is us. Watching all the news lately, like I just watched this speech that Boris Johnson gave, and is appreciative. See, this is my great concern. I don't always come down, because when I hear people saying about how much they're going to help, like, Ukrainian people, like, obviously, yeah, awesome. But it hurts me that we, as people, and also our government, I understand why governments have to say things the way they have to say things, all things considered. Unless someone had the power of the word, and then they could speak outside of normality, right? They could say something no one can say, except for them, right? Anyway, I feel a lot of pain, compassion, like, just for everybody, and because I know, like, people say governments lie, governments lie, governments lie. Yes, they do, but that in another aspect, they also do tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. We just haven't looked at all the truth they've told. And sometimes, if we look at the truths they're telling from every direction, from every agency, we actually can, in our minds, put the pieces together. So governments lie and they tell the truth, just like us. Right? You want better governments? Build better people, right? But then again, it's a feedback loop. Build better governments. If you build a better government, the government builds better people, and better people build an even better government. It doesn't, see, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be the dialectic. Exactly. It doesn't have to be this thing, this completely opposite thing, reconciliation. It's not quite like that. It's more like solution, trade-off. We don't have to go right to the antithesis to create a resolution. The thesis and the antithesis, they're not on the same plane. I'm getting lost in the weeds, and I'm not making a good point there. Sorry about that. Anyway, like, I feel, in one sense, for those from Russia who don't like America, they make a good point because they make the same point, you know. Most people in America who hate, like, who shit on the 1%, right? We're all shitting on the 1%. Meanwhile, trying to get there. Anyway, when other countries are shitting on America, they're shitting on the same 1% we're shitting on. Yet at the same time, it's that 1% who is building all the factories, creating all the jobs. Yeah, there's all these other motherfuckers skimming off the top, but fuck it, get them out of the way. Because if they're spending money buying shit. Right. How many of us look at ourselves, right? Look at the work we do and say, what social value does this have? Is this necessary work? I'll be honest with you. My work is it's not completely unnecessary because people need houses. Painting at this point in history needs to be done. It's a part of the process. In that sense, for everyone who requires a room or a house or an estate of one's own, right? Somebody's got to paint it. It's just a matter of how, my guess is that maybe, well, let's say 50% of my work is work that doesn't need to be done because it exceeds what needs to be done, right? But at the same time, it certainly achieves one thing. I get a paycheck on Friday. If everybody grows up to be a working man, if everybody grows up to be a builder, if everybody, 90% of the population grows up to be a builder, well, there's too many buildings. If everybody grows up to be a cowboy, then eventually there's too much meat, too many cows. The balancing act, of 7 billion people, whatever, give or take. That's not nothing, man. So, even with everything going on in the world today, up to today, things are still fucking awesome compared to the rest of the entire world, universe, and cosmological order that we know. Compared to the universe, compared to the oceans, compared to the wilds, compared to our history, now is still the very best time to be alive by the numbers. And it's up to me, and it's up to you, and it's up to you, and it's up to me to make sense of that and do something about it. as it turns out. I wasn't sure. I poked around. Poked where I shouldn't have poked. Finding our place in that. Our place in that. Finding that place is the great work. It's got a lot of layers. I ain't perfect. So just to give a little bit of because I'm not saying my stance is like the right stance for everybody. I'm not saying everybody should think or believe like me. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm trying to give this perspective, and it's how I feel. I feel great compassion for the Russian people. And it's cold. Like when you look at the geopolitics, we're thinking of like how to beat them. It's like beat them. The thing is, they're tied for first place for bully of the block. America's the bully on the block. Russia's the bully on the block. And I guess what I can't help but feel is that what if we healed these bullies and brought them together? Take the two bullies on the block who bully everybody and each other. There are two bullies on the block. Russia, United States. But of course there's NATO, and then there's also the more or less loosely allied Russian, Indian, Chinese, Belarus, maybe a couple others. There's a thread, but threads are important. If you're hanging by a thread, well, you're hanging by a thread. Threads are important. In France, Macron is Russia's thread. That's, yeah. Philosophically, teleologically, prophetically, what happened when France pulled out of NATO the way in which it did while still being a part of NATO, it suddenly made itself kind of equal philosophically with NATO. The thing that France did, which is it's a marvel, it's a piece of magic. People call it legislation, people call it law. That's the power of the word. It's magic. They spoke themselves into a special situation that's never existed. And they are that thread that's holding the fucking world together at the moment. There's so much tension. Those couple conversations between Putin and Macron, man. It's like a guitar. It's like the high E guitar string. It's the smallest part of the entire guitar, right? But on an electric guitar, especially, it gives the highest squeal, you know? That's the power of the thread that's holding the whole fucking world together. I can't remember where Pakistan stands. There's Syria. I can't remember where Turkey stands. Anyway, so I got the red, white, and blue in a way. I know I don't got the... It's not exactly perfect, and it's upside down, but I'm on the other side of the world, so there's a metaphor that fits somehow that's not derogatory. This one's for Russia. Also emulating the because Russia and Islam are what carry the Egyptian aspect of Ethiopianism. There's the Egyptian, well, I'm sorry, the Egyptian aspect of, well, there's because the Egyptian was influenced through the Ethiopian via the, I can't remember. Yeah, the Arabian Sea, like because there's that whole waterway in the Arabian Sea, and it's like basically way back, back when Greece was doing Greece and Rome and all that entire time period, Egypt, the power of the Mediterranean. The same thing was going along. It's just the history wasn't saved. There wasn't like some huge government that there wasn't a Library of Alexandria that we know of. I think there's like thousands and thousands of untranslated old Coptic clay tablets. So people are going around looking for this, searching for manuscripts, searching archaeological sites. Meanwhile, there's thousands of old Coptic clay tablets that haven't been translated. Why? Well, because a lot of them are shit. A lot of them are just like blah, 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 blah. But that's the real work of historians. The real work of historians is the same as the real work of mathematicians, going through shit. So we learn something that takes a few years to learn, or maybe a class, or this or that. We get one equation out of, we go to class for a week, and at the end of it, we get to the point of like one equation that does this elegant thing, and then we do that over and over for a long time, right? Meanwhile, a lot of the real work is data collection and computation of large sums of data. And a computer can do a certain thing, but there's also a power in a person doing that thing, crunching those numbers, making a line, lining up those numbers with your motor skills and actually doing something, making a circle with a compass, tying in that left brain and that right brain with the beauty and the pictures and the forms and the simplest of geometric forms, and then assigning them numbers and ratios and relationships. That's powerful. So even at a very basic, simple level of math or history, when we're actually looking through specific pieces of data ourselves, something happens that can't be replicated in any other way. But yeah, anyway, all I'm trying to say is that the Russia specifically, well, Russia preserves both. This is the thing. If you want to know, like what happened when there's two groups of people call Coptic, right? Because some people call it like Babylonian, Mesopotamian, the Coptic text. But then there's also a lot of people who are into Christology. When they say Coptic, they're not talking about the same people. They're talking about the Egyptian Coptic Christians. And the Egyptian Coptic Christians married together the mythologies of Egypt, Greece, Persia, and Russia has a great claim to that heritage. Arabia, everything really, but Russia has a great claim to that heritage for a number of reasons, but the two glaringly, symbolically, most obvious are its containment of Greek letters in its alphabet, which doesn't, like, in that sense, phonetically, etymologically, philologically, like, Russia has a great claim to the heritage of Greece. Period. It's just like, you know, we have a Roman script language. In that sense, right? And a lot of people argue that Greece trumps Rome, but Rome did have good plumbing. Right? Go without plumbing, live in an apartment without plumbing. You'll find it's not very nice if you've been used to it, But anyway, a lot of people say, Greece trumps Rome. A lot of the philosophical types. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they do. But anyway, if us and our romantic languages are, in that sense, direct offsprings of Rome, then Russia is legitimately, at least partially, an offspring of Greece. But also, with its clergy, the symbolic representation is very pharaonic in the headdress, very, and just generally speaking. And I've learned a lot about Orthodoxy over the last year and a half or so, just passively by watching lots of YouTube videos, mostly by the 10-minute Bible Hour guy. I think his name's Matt. I watched a lot of his videos. I think he has like the best approach to like the religious life or one of the best, tied for first place as far as like the spirit of the age and the spirit of the spirit. It really is time for people to come together, and what that also means is like forgiveness, trust, like people we disagree with, like to still forgive them and trust them and try to see their point of view. But mostly we need to forgive, and I know it's hard. I'm a hypocrite for saying that because anger still lives so much inside me. And I have a hard time not objectifying people, and I take a lot for granted. When I forget both my place in nature, which is as an animal. I'm a piece of meat in a world full of mouths that would just love to eat me. Little old me? Yeah, man. There's a set of fangs out there. A lot of them. Not just one. Thousands of sets of fangs out there for any of us, right? Getting off point. So anyway, that was just a little bit for, because I watch a lot of different YouTube videos and stuff, and sometimes I watch ones from Russia and stuff, and just life in Russia. So I learned about like how they have their 9-story buildings and so on, and some of it looks different from here. Some of it looks pretty much just the same. The mega stores look similar, you know. But it does seem as though there's a little bit more utilization of space. It seems like there's a little less space for quote unquote regular folk, you know. And yeah, and then there's this. So we had the red, white, and blue for for Russia, and then we'll do the for the Ukrainian people. Because yeah, I agreed with everything that Boris Johnson said, about all the relief and like the refugee program for Ukrainians. Like, yeah, obviously, yeah, man, help people, save people. Absolutely, But we also do know some Ukrainians have been going to Russia. It's a fact, So that does give credibility to Putin, what Putin's saying. Like, without that, you get the RT reporting, Russia Today. You get that reporting, but it's like, I don't know. Like you feel for it. It hits home, but then there's always that part of the mind just asking, like, is this real, not real, whatever. But then you learn that people are legitimately from the Ukraine fleeing to Russia, and it's like, well, looks like Putin kind of has a point, you know. Now, as far as the rest of it, I don't know enough. But I feel bad, man. I feel bad for people, and I don't want people, because I grew up with everybody being prejudiced against Russia, and then it seemed up until a couple weeks ago, as far as it hit my life, like things were getting better that way. And I've always thought, like, what could the two most powerful countries, well, nuclearly, or who the biggest bullies battle against each other and against everybody else, or at least that's one way of looking at it. They also protect everybody else. You know, that whole mutually assured destruction thing. Well, we're all still here, aren't we? Maybe there's something to that. And they're the biggest players, right? And if they can do that, and I know at this point, if you took every American, like if somehow this magical thing, right? Just perform this thought experiment. Just think about it. Just think about it for a minute. If you took every American and put them in Russia, and took every Russian and put them in America, it's kind of like how sometimes I wonder if, like, what if every spy was a double agent, so that every spy from Russia was secretly a spy from the US, and every spy from the US was secretly a spy from Russia, and they were all double agents. So you'd have, in the US, you'd have Russians spying on Russia. But the Russians who are spying on Russia, in the US, you'd have Russians spying at United States spies from Russia. I mean, boop, 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 boop. But anyway, if you took all the people from the US, put them in Russia, and you took all the people from Russia and put them in the US, I'm just saying, I think Russians are more tough. And the world is tough, That toughness is good. Americans, well, we have this accumulative strength that's hard to articulate for me right now, as far as versus Russia, being tough. We have a different set of skills, and if we were put into the overall greater Russia environment, I'd say we're weaker and wimpier, and not all of us. It's a tougher place, man. No more California, no more all these great places in America. If all the people switch places at once, It is a complex situation, and I do feel bad for Russia because they've been made the. That's a thing with the whole Boris Johnson thing is like we live in a different age. So when you give speeches, you can make them differently now because Russian people will hear you. So we need to explain to like Russian people that this isn't like we don't dislike you, Russian people. Like we want your lives to be better. We're sorry for your pain too. Right? We have to embrace all people and separate the whole idea of like governments versus people. And a government must respond to another government, right? It wouldn't be right for the government to respond to like a government from one country couldn't respond to like or it's just really imperative that national leaders like when you're acting upon a government or a state, like it's really important. You have to recognize that you're as the government, you're responding to a government as an and as a so what is a government? A government is a balance between pragmatic, economic, market interests, necessary, pragmatic, economic interests, and philosophy. A guiding light, a shining star of a nation. That's what a government is. Right? So when one government is responding and when one individual as representative of a government is responding to another to an international situation to another government, it's imperative, man, that you recognize that you as representing an economic interest and a philosophical interest, that from that position you as that moral representative are that you're presenting yourself in such a way where you're saying this philosophy that I am imbued with, that I've been granted imbuement with, is pushing back against this government, which is this philosophy instead of economic concerns. That's what these actions that we are collectively taking imply. But as for the people, we are very concerned for you. We love you. Imagine that. Imagine the first world leader who has the balls to say, like, listen, there are things you don't know, and there are things that you don't understand, right? Because we always think of like world leaders like, oh, they're just this, that, whatever. Man, yeah, some maybe. And some of the other ones, man, they know shit we don't know. They're smarter than us. They worked harder than us. They've been in rooms we ain't been in, you know. Some. and just say we have to do this. Here's the philosophical moral imperative of our action. Here's the true, authentic, economic, pragmatic, physical need of our situation, which combine into our stance. We're presenting it to you, both in words and action. But for the people, we love you. We are you. Understanding and de-escalation and dealing with this shit. Greater understanding means like anything humans put their minds to, anything we put our minds to, we can do. So more of us have to pay more attention to more shit that matters. Anyway, what I was going to say last time was, well, a couple things. One was when Biden won the presidency, the last words of his inaugural speech were something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, but I feel like it was God bless America, God save our church, or God bless America, God bless our church, or God save America, God save our church, something like that. But his last word was church, or, pretty much. And of course, he's Catholic. So that's, the Holy Mother. That weren't too long ago. And now, Russia has engaged, and we always say Putin. We like to say Putin instead of Russia, or like the Russian government, or like an entire huge fucking government with like important people. But we don't have the time to know all that, so we just say Putin. And of course, yeah, people say he's a dictator. Obviously, he has a unique grasp of power that most of us would find archaic, Anyway, before he began the greatest escalation of tension, for me, in my lifetime, this is more of a concern than, well, obviously, because it's more existential. This is more, well, it's the greatest existential threat since 9/11, but it's actually even bigger. Even though I'm not quite as worried about it on a personal level, only because, well, I'm I'm concerned. I'm concerned. It's just like, I don't know. For so many years, I keep thinking like, is this my last day? uh, mm. But anyway, the first thing Putin did before launching it, or launching his attack like right before publicly, publicized, him kissing a icon of Mary. So you got Biden, who's a holy Mother Mary type of dude. And you got Putin, a holy Mother Mary type of dude. And that's fucking interesting. And then the other thing was that I didn't mention when Putin said in his speech. I mean, it's a world historic speech at this point. You know, is that he'd never said it before, but that he'd asked. He's like, I've never said this before. That when Clinton was around, he'd ask Clinton about joining NATO. Like, what if Russia joined NATO? Clinton was just like, basically, you know. And just even asking the question is like one of the greatest expressions of vulnerability, of desire, of like reaching out a hand. Like, basically, in that one moment, Putin, as a man and as a representative of the wants of healing of the truly good peoples of his country and the world, said, what if? NATO's a powerful, you know, I'm speculating, but I think it's a pretty good speculation. I've never said this before. When someone says that about something really important that happened over 20 years ago, that's important. I've never said this before. I'm speculating, but I think the philosophy behind it is, yeah, NATO, most powerful force on the planet. Russia, the other most powerful force on the planet. If we get together, if we reconcile, if we heal those historic rifts, if we come clean and come together, imagine what Russia and the USA could do working together. I mean, first of all, how about the fucking space program? Oh, the most amazing thing, the most amazing physical accomplishment that we know of, not only in human history, but that we know of concretely, the greatest achievement in the entire fucking universe that we know of and can agree upon. Oh, the US and the USSR competed against each other. Russia, you know, I know but like competed against each other and came together to work together in the greatest achievement. Oh. Now imagine if we put that mind power together here on Earth. Imagine that. Imagine what we could do together. Because philosophically, it's in bureaucratic fine points. There's a great wall of bureaucratic fine points of philosophy that keep us separated. It's not just that, but that's a key aspect. There are two things really. It's Russia's, yeah, I don't want to say much more. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Except for one thing, is that more compassion to individuals. You know? Because we're all just on gerbil wheels. The average Russian, the average American has no fucking idea about any of this shit. Wouldn't have a clue how to fix it, how to do anything about it. Isn't going to change their lives at all unless fucking tanks come rolling down the road. Then everything's upheaval. And besides that, gonna go to work every day, try to just fucking carry on and just let everything just be like whatever. And yeah, when Putin said that, like, imagine if Clinton had been like, yes. What's the chances of Russia joining? What if Clinton had said, yes? Yes, join. We will all protect each other, and we will all protect the world. I know I'm being... But... Or he could have said, that would present so many possibilities. I've never thought of that before. What an interesting idea. Cool heads prevail. But yeah, these mixtures of different things that have all these similarities because there's so much our cultures share and could build on with each other. Learn from each other. Also, I know the US is always concerned about China, but I don't know. In a certain sense, we just made China more powerful. Maybe from a God's eye view, that's what's supposed to happen. I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to happen, but I know it's on the time scale of happening. Maybe I'll get to the Filipino. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Yeah. The Filipino Catholic Church. And like Southern Baptist, Black Southern Baptist Church, and Filipino, basically like women, black women from Southern churches. I know it's not right to be like pick people out, but it's a thing, right? It's a thing. There might be like blurry edges, but like black women in the church, that's a thing. Everybody kind of has some idea of some kind of sense for that, right? I don't have an intimate sense of that, but I have a sense of that. And I recognize it as an incredibly powerful healing force in the world, right? I feel like marrying whatever that is, whoever they are. Not marrying, but some kind of conference or some kind of organization, some kind of dialogue between that specific group of people, of human beings, right? There's something special about that demographic. I'm sorry I'm saying that. I'm just like this demographic. This. I know it's coming out wrong and sounding bad. I'm just trying to say, like, there's something special about, like, for lack of a better term, the black church, as we know it popularly. That spirit, Specifically the women. And then you always hear about, like, Filipino women in the Catholic Church. It just keeps coming up. Like, I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know Filipino women in the Catholic Church is like fucking hardcore banging fucking, I didn't know that was a thing. Apparently it's a thing. So I checked it out. Looks like the Philippines is like the most fucking Catholic place on the planet, man, besides the Vatican. And I think that's really interesting because, yeah, there are historic reasons why that happened. A lot of people would be like, yeah, but, the thing about when you're, like, forcefully indoctrinated into something, once that power structure of forceful domination leaves, the natural will takes back over. For instance, in Russia, commies don't believe in God, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're saying that all this time. And what happened? Church for 1,000 fucking years. Bolsheviks, blah, blah, blah. Communism, yada, yada, yada. Lenin, Stalin, da, 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 da. Gorbachev. That whole time period. Oh, they don't believe in God, this, that, whatever. Church right up until the fucking moment when it wasn't there. And then the moment the Soviet Union collapsed, the moment the church was just like, boing, immediately. Why? Because it was always there. It was always there. So when we said Russia, 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 what we're talking about is like a tight-knit group of intellectuals who apparently got it wrong. And then a lot of bureaucrats who would work under anything, who just, there's a few people in power, they toe the line, and all the bureaucrats follow. And when the philosophy change and the leaders change, the bureaucrats change. Right? Just like the rest of us, in a certain sense, it's like we're all slaves to the paycheck, period, right? That's it. Yet, we need modes of exchange. So we're always going to be, in a sense, slave to the paycheck. It's just making the most paychecks the most fair for the most people. And in the meantime, making ourselves the most worthy and the most, to not just think of ourselves as recipients of paychecks. I'm speaking hypocritically because, I'm always waiting for Friday. You get paid and it's the weekend. You get money and you don't got to go to work. Of course it's the best day in the week, if that's your situation. But we're always looking for that Friday. But yeah, I think if we, see, that's the thing. Well, what we am I talking about when I'm talking about Filipino women who I don't know? And, I don't mean to be stereotyped, but that's the thing. Sometimes, see, this is the thing. Oh, you're stereotyping. Yes. Some stereotypes are true. And what's true? Right? I'm sorry, but like a black church, women's choir, it goes right to the fucking marrow, and everybody knows it. So am I stereotyping? Yes. What am I speaking to? An archetypal fucking truth. Peri-Yod. Please don't hate on me for it. Am I ignorant? Yes! I'm not going to live long enough to outgrow this stupid. This stupid? I'm never going to live long enough to outgrow that. So give me a fucking break and realize that, you know, I just want to. Alright. I don't want to be too, like, Pollyanna about it or whatever, which is an insult, in a way. Same with, I don't want to wear rose-colored glasses. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I do want to wear rose-colored glasses, actually. Maybe from time to time, as I trudge through this misery, I want to wear a smile and think, wouldn't it be nice if we could? Yeah, I'll just get along. You know, what's wrong with saying that? Whether I'm laughing or crying, you know. What's wrong with saying that, man? It's the fucking best thing you could say. So yeah, I don't have intimate knowledge at all. I have a very far off knowledge of the black church and the Filipino church. But you hear stories, things come up in media. There are these representations, there are these mythologies that people tell. All mythologies start with just people talking, and these same patterns keep coming up. So what was it about the history of those cultures that made those forces, like black women in the church are like a special type of force, and you know, in the Southern Baptist Church, and like Filipino women in the Catholic Church are like a special type of force, like it's a fucking force, archetypal anima from fucking God. Anyway, I think it would be awesome to have some kind of like, yeah, conference or organization. Like, and I'm sorry for being so like, I'm being racist, right? People say, oh, you're being racist, you're stereotyping, blah, blah, blah. Some stereotypes are stereotypes because they're true. I'm a grungy, middle-aged, unkept, ridiculous. I mean, this really is me. Not all of me, but I mean, you know. And I like Bud Light because it has less carbs and it makes me poop. Period. I mean, you know, and it's cheap. So. And people like me matter too. Broken down old middle-aged fucks, you know. We matter too, and there's a lot of us.